My dear people of southern Cameroons, fellow Ambazonians, great warriors of our revolution. Accept revolutionary greetings from me today, Comrade John Ba Akuro. Today is Tuesday, September 14, 2021. My people, I come to you today so we have the opportunity to examine some very interesting and important subject matter. We have been talking since last week about an act, a decision, a judgment by the Buea military tribunal regarding 4 of our compatriots. My brothers and sisters of the southern Cameroons, there's been some speculation about who this gentleman could be, how they were picked up, and how related they might have been to the specific incident they are being attached to and the reason for which they are being handed down a life jail term. My people, after reaching out to several quarters and talking to a lot of people, and then eventually to the corporates themselves, I have put together this information to enlighten each and everyone about what really happened, the true nature of this situation. So we all understand that these are innocent people, I insist, innocent people, who today are being sacrificed because La République du Cameroun and the senior divisional officer, the colonial senior divisional officer for Meme, Tuundang, these are the people they want to sacrifice to conceal what they did on our children in that school on that day in Kumba. Adjust your seat. Settle down. If you have something better, you take it. If it's water, just take a glass of water, just like I'm doing, as I begin this communication. Before I get here, I'll pass through a few things. My people, today, don't worry. If you don't find me smiling a lot, you don't find me laughing a lot, don't worry. I lost my sister this morning, and so I still have a very heavy heart. But absolutely, I had to do this communication because whatever the circumstances, we shall continue to search forward. We will continue to fight as much as we can, more than ever before, to ensure that we take back our country. That is what we want to leave for generations upon generations of southern Cameroons to come. This is why we're receiving insults. This is why we're receiving attacks. This is why stones are being thrown at us. And so we must keep the focus. And yes, we have to keep the faith as we continue to fight, whatever our personal difficulties. True, my heart is heavy, but we will sail on today. My people, I've received a lot of calls, so many calls, a lot of private messages from people here and there asking me to come back and talk about the lockdown that was announced by the Sako faction of the IG to begin this Wednesday, September 15, and run up right up to the 2nd of October. In my last communication, I indicated that there was a reversal of an earlier announcement because I followed the same person who made the earlier announcement come back and announced that after consultation, that after having discussions and after receiving calls and having exchanges with other generals, colonels, and other stakeholders on the ground, they came to the conclusion that the lockdown should be called off. But thereafter, I noticed another muzzled communication around the same lockdown. And today, a lot of people are confused because, on the one hand, you have those who are screaming no lockdown. It is one lockdown too much. And you have those who are screaming lockdown. It is a Guterres lockdown, and that's Guterres is the Secretary General of the United Nations, and the lockdown is to send him a message to debunk a lie. My people, I know the burning desire of our people sometimes that we take clear-cut positions on these issues. But I will say this. Listen, the context in which we are in the southern Cameroons today does not allow me, Mbakuro, to come here right now and tell you obey or don't obey this call for a very specific reason. Look, as it stands today, it requires just one actor because some people look at this as being a fight for supremacy. There is no more an aspect of supremacy in this whole issue. Right now, it's an issue of security. If I were on ground zero and I find myself in this kind of situation, I would like to evaluate the situation. I would like to evaluate the risk, make a cost-benefit analysis. Should I go out? Should I not go out? What does it portend for me if I go out? Because it simply requires an announcement. And no one knows who is carrying sticks with a lot of granules in those sticks. So you wonder, even if this one says, don't go, I will protect you. The other one says, if you come, I will deal with you. So you don't know who of them is stronger than the other or who of them will be on the streets. This is where the confusion is. My people of the Southern Cameroons, I've come here several times and I've talked the language of collaboration, the language of cooperation, the language of synergy. Sometimes I've received insults with people saying, why don't you try to fix this thing behind the scenes? I'm refusing absolutely to take a position on this issue because I have tried the behind the scenes approach with all the energy I can manage to let the various stakeholders understand that on an issue as simple as a lockdown, there needs to be consensus. There needs to be consensus. Why should there be consensus? Because in a multi-stakeholder struggle, like the struggle of the people of the Southern Cameroons for freedom, it is important to concert when you are taking a decision that may hamper plans being made by another stakeholder, on the same terrain. This is what usually leads to clashes. My people, I think the way of wisdom indicates that we don't take lockdowns to be the barometer of either our popularity or our grip of power over the people. It is not an appropriate measure. Why is it not an appropriate measure? Because, like I say, let a group, just a little group from nowhere on the ground, get up and say there will be lockdown. And they notice that they carry sticks and granates. Trust me, people will stay home. So it's not a matter of I called it, that's why I was respected. If you call it, it will not be respected. No. The issue at stake right now is it in the interest of the people? Is it in our collective interest? Does it advance our cause? These are the questions we should ask when making such decisions. Today, we are faced with a serious complication because those who believe that we should move material around, move people around, and at least have some good or celebration of October 1 will find the activities hampered because those who call the lockdown perhaps don't plan to celebrate. And so, consequent on this, the movements of those who plan to celebrate will be hampered. Because what happens here is, once the people are asked to stay at home, and they duly stay at home and lock down, anyone seen on the street, especially by Mr. Paul Biya's thugs and scouts, will be considered amber. Immediately, you are in for it. So, in a situation like ours, there is always reason to have this kind of talk behind the scenes so that at the end of the day, it is a unanimous decision that works only in the interest of the people, in the interest of the cause for which we are fighting. My dear people of the Southern Cameroons, you will notice that because we didn't have this kind of dialogue behind the scenes, that is why you get diverse interpretations, with some people going as far as saying that this lockdown is targeting mainly the back to school and at the same time making sure we don't have any celebrations of October 1. But listen, all of this will constitute conspiracy theories. Just conspiracy theories. Because sometimes people take a decision based on information they have, and others are opposing it based on information they too have. But if we had to talk to one another, we will exchange the information we have from all angles, and we will realize that perhaps one course of action or the other will be the best. And that will be the guiding principle for the decision that we make. Right now, where it is, the choice is left in the hands of the people of the Southern Cameroons to determine how they appreciate this. And the problem we face here is that when we go in dispersed ranks, you will have some areas like Bamenda, where this order is likely to be so seriously respected. You have others like Buea, where this order may not be respected at all. You have other areas perhaps like Kumba that may respect for 2-3 days, and after that, that is it. You may have areas like Limbe that will not, or even Mamfe that will, but the application of such orders should cover the entire territory. If we were able to achieve consensus to have a ghost town in Southern Cameroons without sticks or granules, and with no one to enforce it, and it was respected all over the territory, all over the territory, on January 9, 2017, it was because there was this dialogue. It was because there was this consultation. It was because all stakeholders were involved. This is the blueprint I will propose going forward, that we do as much as possible. We put in all the effort necessary. Let's do the hard work. Let's not be afraid of it. Let's talk to each other. We may disagree on certain points, but we are definitely not enemies. We are Southern Cameroonians, all of us, fighting for the same cause, trying to make sure we secure homeland for the future of all of us, all our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. So there is no reason, my dear people of the Southern Cameroons, that we should drift so much apart of each other when it comes to taking decisions as important and as sensitive as these ones that will have an impact on the people. I hear the noise. Sorry about calling it noise. I hear the complaints from ground zero. The people saying they are stifled. They have a lot of difficulties. It is true that because we are locked in this kind of crisis, in this kind of conflict, with a colonizer ready to devour us at all costs, that we need to make sacrifices. Yes, we'll make a lot of sacrifices, but let us at least have the courtesy to exchange, to agree, and to make sure that we consult and then we accept this sacrifice voluntarily. When some in our midst begin to feel forced to make this sacrifice, feelings of resentment may grow, and this is exactly not what I want. My people of the Southern Cameroons, I want to urge all and sundry, do not take our mistakes to be the basis of a decision you will make to abandon the struggle. This struggle is too golden, too important. We can't afford to push it forward to the next generation, because the devastation we are witnessing today will be worse then. Because La République du Cameroon was taken by surprise this time. They were taken aback. They never had the opportunity to prepare, to know, to understand that they were going to meet this level of resilience that they are meeting in our people. But if we give them time and allow ourselves to be completely weakened, future generations of Southern Cameroonians may never have the chance to take back our land. This is why we must do it now. This is why I will urge all and sundry that when these mistakes come, please find ways of getting to each and every one that you know can have the ears of those concerned and indicate that if this is not done, henceforth we may find ourselves on this kind of highway. And let us always be able to resolve this among ourselves. I know La République du Cameroon is always standing and waiting for moments like these ones, where we are heavily divided around a certain objective. Because a failure of this lockdown will represent to La République du Cameroon not the failure of the group that caught it. They will consider that it represents the failure of Ambazonia. My people, this is the reason that when we go out to take such measures, we should at all costs try to consult others. Even, like I said, if we are disagreeing, use all kinds of channels to reach out to people and say, this is what I intend to do. And these are the reasons. It will give us the possibility to overcome this challenge. Let us continue to be forward-looking. I refuse to take a position because I don't want to antagonize. But my position, my view is that we need a lot of communication among us. We need a lot of talking to one another. My dear people of the Southern Cameroons on Ground Zero, in your infinite wisdom, determine how safe it is to take whatever position you are taking in these circumstances. Let us continue as much as possible to support all those who are sacrificing, especially at the supreme level, to make sure that this freedom we are seeking will be a reality. I want to get out of that subject matter now and get into the vive of our communication. Before I get there, let me thank all of you who thus far are making an effort to contribute for this Akumaka project. I'm really, really touched. Honestly, I am overwhelmed with joy that some of you, despite the negativity out there, despite the insults that are being heaped here and there, despite, the disdain that we get from some quarters, you have made up your minds that we have to move together. I want to encourage and thank all of you and give you a pat on the back and assure you that when this project begins, you will understand what it is all about. You will enjoy it. Someone wrote to me and said, do you know why perhaps there's not so much enthusiasm? Because you're not explaining what this Akumaka is. This is the problem we face. We're in a revolution. Sometimes we really can't explain everything. But when you see me come and insist and insist and insist, I'm virtually like I have my knee on the ground and say, please help us realize this project. Understand that it's a sensitive project that is definitely going to, be so beneficial to our movement. And now let us move to the real subject matter of the day. My people, on September 7, a judge in Buea, a military judge in Buea, of course a citizen of La République du Cameroun, decided that it made sense, without any fair hearing, to sentence 4 of ours to death by firing squad. I am coming here today to present to the people of the Southern Cameroons and to the rest of the world the circumstances under which each of these 4 young men were picked up. And you will understand for yourselves that they could never, by any means, be related to the incident that occurred at the Mother Francisca International School in Kumba. Listen, I'm beginning with the first one. His name is Conte. This is Conte. His name is Conte Patrick. Conte Patrick Tanto was a taxi driver who left Kumba and went to live in Douala. He returned to Kumba to pick up his personal effects to go him back to Douala because he was leaving Kumba to go and settle in Douala. So while he was discussing with his friend, in his neighborhood, at a junction in his neighborhood, The military drove in a civilian vehicle. They picked him up. That's when he knew that it was the handiwork of his friends who decided to set him up. And so that is how Conte Patrick found himself in the hands of La République du Cameroon. And eventually, he was told that he was being picked up in connection to an incident that happened at the Mother Francisca International Bilingual School in Kumba. Conte doesn't even understand what happened on that day. He was not at the scene. He doesn't even have an idea what the whole thing was all about. But today, he's declared guilty for carrying out that act. And he's been sentenced to he's been sentenced to death by firing squad. The next is called Elangwe Kelvin. This is Elangwe Kelvin. Elangwe Kelvin Eyabu was a carpenter. He was returning from his workshop in the evening, where he had spent the entire day toiling to raise money and take care of himself and his family. And on his way back from work, late in the evening, he says he was not even aware that something had happened in town. On his way back from work, he was arrested at his junction and whisked off by Mr. Paul Biastox. It is only later, when he was in detention, that Mr. Elangwe was told that he was picked up in connection to an incident that happened at the Mother Francisca International Bilingual School in Kumba. The next one is Reinhard Lidi Munkefo. Reinhard Lidi Munkefo, as you can see him, he's 20 years old. He was a bike rider plying his trade at the Fiango market in Kumba. So as he was just adjusting his bike to drop off a passenger, a car drove by and two men in mufti with guns arrested him. They threw him into the booth of the car, locked it, and drove off at breakneck speed. At the B camp, he saw a huge man who introduced himself as Nambere, the Nambere you guys know. And the Nambere accused him of being an Amber boy. Nambere was not accusing him of being at the scene of that incident. Nambere was accusing him of being an Amber boy. And just the fact that they were identifying him as an Amber boy, whom of course he says he's never been, that was enough to tie him to the incident at the Mother Francisca International Bilingual School in Kumba. That is how Reinhard Lidi Munkefo found himself in the police dragnet. And the last of them is called Emily Gildas. Emily Longsi Gildas was arrested before the Kumba incident ever happened. He was arrested by Nambere and soldiers, and they offered him money to quit the struggle. Listen, I say he was arrested by Nambere and Mr. Paul Biastox and scouts before, that's prior to the incident that occurred at the Mother Francisca International Bilingual Academy in Kumba. He was picked up by Nambere and those talks who offered him money and said he should quit the struggle. After that incident, he was just picked up from detention where he had been before the incident, and, brought to join the others, and he was accused of being responsible for the incident that occurred in Kumba, for that massacre. That is what happened. So now, you gather from what I'm explaining, my dear people of the Southern Cameroons, that these four gentlemen never knew each other. These four gentlemen had never met each other. Their paths had never crossed. They met for the first time in detention when they were told as a group that they collectively carried out the act that we're talking about here. This is what you call travesty of justice. And this is why you definitely realize that the trial took place the way it took, very speedily, and no one hearing about it in total secrecy for an incident like that one of that magnitude that the entire world was talking about, and that everybody wanted to know who was responsible, and everybody wanted to know the circumstances that led to that to the brutal incident at that school. Now, the way the trial went, did anybody hear anything? Normally, we should hear the revelations. These children or these young men should do a mea culpa. That is how it is normally. And explain what happened, and say their motivations, and say the people who sent them, and say how they prepared to carry out that act. We haven't heard any of such. This is not a characteristic of La République du Cameroon. This is not how they do things in such situations. They will take you to the site to visit the locals. They will get there, and you will do a mock presentation of exactly how you prepared, planned the whole act, and how you carried it out. We didn't see this. My people, this is a clear indication to those who are still doubting that these young men are as innocent as the word innocence itself. And so, by people of the Southern Cameroons, this is one more reason why we have to make sure we guard our loins, why we have to make sure we go out of our way and continue to be resilient, continue to be determined to forge on, and ignore even some of the mistakes that we make along the line, while trying to see how we brainstorm and come up with solutions to overcome these mistakes and forge on. Listen, I've said this and I repeat it. We are taking slightly longer in the wilderness of the struggle because we are not yet mature enough to agree with each other on how to prosecute the struggle. As soon as we would have been able to resolve all of this, our speed will change. When I say this, people say, you begin. Like I say, I do this every day behind the scenes. The fact that we are not making progress doesn't mean we are not trying. The fact that we have not succeeded in getting everyone to understand that there is opportunity coming ahead, and it is coming very, very soon, that we need to get ready to take advantage of this opportunity. If we don't understand that, then something must be wrong with us. My people, you who are out there helping to fund this division among our various groups, movements, and organizations, desist from doing that. Rather, encourage people to talk to one another. We need each other. For us to finish this struggle, we will need each other. All of our hands have to be on deck. There is no pretending about it. I will say it day in, day out. You can accept, you can refuse, you can throw me stones, but the basic thing is you will come back to recognize that that was the path we needed to follow. Because we will end up following that path before we get to Buea. And my people, I assure you, I always hear that sound of freedom. That means that we will get there. I always hear it. Because if that sound has ceased ringing, where it has always been ringing, and I've always been getting the sound, I would have told myself all is lost. But nothing absolutely is lost. We are rather making progress because the sound is coming closer and closer. The only thing is, it is moving slowly. It ought to move faster. We will have to resolve our differences. And I'm confident that somewhere along the line, we will. And that those who continue to be obstacles to our being able to resolve these differences, one day will find reason to step aside. And we will get there. Look, we sit and we dream. We tell stories. We imagine that let us rely on the United Nations, on the World Bank, or on this and that. Listen, my dear people of the Southern Cameroons, the only way we will get this freedom we seek is to continue to resist La République du Cameroon as much as we can, is to give them nose bleeding until they themselves back out of our territory, and the rest of the world, the United Nations, the World Bank, the IMF, the EU, the AU, and all of them simply observe that we have succeeded in getting La République du Cameroon out of our territory. Then will they come in. For now, Mr. Paul Biya's government is a beautiful channel for international corruption with the rest of these institutions. Take note. That is why you take a look at my screen. The World Bank was screaming recently, no, there must be an audit and the audit results must be published concerning the first 300 billion CFA set aside to fight COVID in Cameroon, and the money was eaten with reckless abandon. The money was embezzled in broad daylight, in total arrogance. And when it came to time to talk about it, even those who embezzled it, they showed wonderful scenes that could send anyone's stomach churning. And people expected the World Bank would close the tube and wait until Cameroon complies. Hell no, they can't. Because you see this money that's sent out there, a good chunk of that money doesn't get to Cameroon. No, a good chunk of that money doesn't get to Cameroon. Listen, my people, and listen well. A good chunk of this money doesn't get to Cameroon. Huge percentages are left right back in the West before the balance gets to Cameroon. That is why no matter how much you sing and dance and do everything, Mr. Paul Biya is a good sparring partner. So they will continue to upload that money. That's why you can see for yourselves, my dear people of Southern Cameroon, 17 billion CFA funds allocated to Cameroon by the World Bank just for a communication campaign on the COVID-19 vaccine. Listen, just for a communication campaign, just communication, sensitization around the COVID-19 vaccine. Not to administer the vaccine, no. Not to promote the vaccine, no. Just for communication. They decided to look for an easy area where it will be easy to claim that, okay, a few messages were put in newspapers here and there, a few announcements were made on radio, a few spots were broadcast on TV. Where 17 billion is gone. And they are aware that at the end of the day, even when Mr. Paul Biya goes, the people of Cameroon will pay that money. So they are using Mr. Paul Biya to indebt generations upon generations of La République du Cameroon to come. Do we want to be part of this debt? Do we want to be part of this cabal? No. Hell no. Hell no. Please, please, if you are as angry, frustrated, and as determined as I am that we need to move forward, take a look at this credentials before you. We need to move. It is time for action. Let me tell you, no matter how much you sing today, I've come to that conclusion that the United Nations, the World Bank, the IMF, and everything is not going to get us to anywhere. The thing that will get us to that place are projects like the Akumaka. The thing that will get us to that place is determination. The thing that will get us to that place is continued resilience. The thing that will get us to that place is reinforced resistance. It's making the cost of occupation ever expensive to La République du Cameroon. Oh yes, they will pack out someday soon. Let me end with this picture. This is a picture that will make a lot of us angry. That will make a lot of us really ask ourselves questions as to how we got here. This is Fumban. As you can see, that is Fumban. That's Ahijo standing there right in the middle, Foncha by his side, by his side. And you can see this is Endeli here, where you see my cursor. That's Endeli. This is Django Foncha, Amadou Ahijo, and my people. Look, this is that day in Fumban where our fate was sealed for all these years, for decades. Why I bring this picture, and I bring it over and over, is that each time we look at it, we know exactly why we have to keep surging on. We know why we have to keep forging on. We know why we have to keep pace with our determination to attain total independence, total and absolute independence and freedom. This is where our forebears were duped. That is a picture. So this is after our fate was sealed, that they stood there to post for posterity. My people, we must work very hard by all peaceful means possible to cut the chains of slavery and servitude. We must work by all peaceful means to ensure, my people of the Southern Cameroons, that we attain our objective, that of liberating homeland and securing a future of 8 million Southern Cameroonians and millions others of Southern Cameroonians who are still to be born. We must stay strong, we must stay resilient, and we must stay determined. My people, let us continue to put in all the efforts required to get all the members of the various groups, movements, and organizations involved with our struggle to understand the need to talk to one another, even if we are not agreeing, especially when it comes to taking sensitive decisions. To God be all the glory.